Every once in a while, I like to tie a fun pattern, one that may not have a lot of known history, but it's a fun, easy pattern to tie, and you know it catches fish. Now I've got one of those for you today. It's the good old woolly worm. Now there are no shortages of instructions out there on how to tie this thing. There are plenty of YouTube videos. It's in a lot of different books. In fact, the first 3 books I grabbed off my shelf all had it in it, and all had it tied a little bit differently. It was in Charles Brooks' 1976 Nymph Fishing for Larger Trout. He had it without a tail, dark chenille body, and then a palmered soft hackle. Then Don Kirk, in his 2014 Hatches and Fly Patterns of the Great Smoky Mountains, had it tied with a red wool tail and a yellow chenille body, and then a palmered soft hackle. And then David Klausmeyer, in his 2020 Favorite Flies, had it tied with red marabou tips for a tail and a peacock herl body, and then a palmered soft hackle. So the only constant is the palmered soft hackle. So it's safe to say that this fly can be tied in all kinds of ways. But I'm going to go with Klausmeyer's version today because I think it's just a little bit more interesting and it's a little bit more unique than most of the other patterns you see out there. But still, it's a fun tie, and it is a big shaggy mess, but you know this thing will catch just about any species of fish you put it in front of. So there's one in the vise, just a classic, really buggy looking woolly worm. Now good sizes for this thing are as big as a 6, small as a 10. I'm going with a size 8. This is a 1 extra long, 1 extra strong wet fly hook, and I am going to weight it. I think this is optional, but if you don't, I could imagine you'd probably have to fish this with split shot. So I'm going to put a lot of weight on, pretty much the length of the shank here. And I'm going to use a black thread. This is a 70 denier. I'll put a little dam in front of this weight, a few wraps over it, then a dam behind it, and then leave it back where I'm going to catch in the tail. And I probably mentioned that I'm going to tie this how Klausmeyer had it in his book. He says use a red soft hackle for a tail, or if you don't have that, I mean, and who has a red soft hackle, use a red marabou. So this is marabou tips right here, and it'll work just fine. Of course, Don Kirk said you could use wool, and then Joe Brooks said don't use a tail at all. So really just do it however you want right here. And that one in the vise at the beginning, I used a natural grizzly hen. This one, I'm gonna go with a dyed olive. And I'm going to catch it in from the tip, that way the barbs will get longer as I wrap up. Now a lot of woolly worms you'll see out there have a chenille body, but again, I'm doing the Klausmeyer version here, and I'm going to go with peacock herl, because I think it's just a magical material. And when I'm wrapping more than 1 strand of peacock herl, I'll leave my thread about halfway. That way as I wrap it up, if it starts splitting up on me, that thread will help hold them together. And with peacock herl, usually you can just put some tension on your thread and then break those off. Just make sure you put a few extra wraps to really lock them in. Now we're just going to palmer this up, and really up to you how close together you want to put them, but just beware if you put them really close together you might start running out of feather before you get up to the front. So I'm going to kind of keep them close together, but also just, you know, space them out a little bit, just enough that I've got, you know, a pretty buggy fly but enough feather to get me up front. And what I'll do next, just lick my fingers, pull these back, and build a big old head here. Don't be afraid to have a big head. It's a, you know, wet fly nymph type bug. Let's do a quick whip finish, and there's going to be no cleanup on a fly like this. Drop a head cement, and we'll be good to go. I say no cleanup, and then I got one barb sticking way up right there, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about that little guy. I'm just going to put some head cement on it, put this guy in my fly box. So that's it, my friends, a classic woolly worm. Now, I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and We'll see you next time.